Before the podcast starts, please follow the Instagram on screen Football Opinionated Podcast. Put out when the episodes come out and when I'm getting guests on to ask questions. And this is a podcast with Rob, who had a really interesting story about his football career so far. Enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Rob Deda.
Thank you for having me.
I thought we'd just start, like most of the podcasts I started with how you started out in football, sort of when you started first playing and how you got into it.
So basically I started like around 7-8 years old, just started at my local, which was Seagulls at the time. Weren't the greatest, but I was doing well for myself at the time, and then I just took the opportunity to play higher like league in the Sunday league teams. And then just sort of progressed through there really, and then sort of made my way higher and higher each time.
Do you think Sunday League's really important for people to play from quite young? I think I started playing around 12, 13. Do you think is a big thing in people sort of learning how to play football and also like meet people? Like I think me and you probably both the same. Most people we know have been through either school or Sunday League football.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's obviously you start as a hobby and like something to do, but it's just enjoyment really. It's something to go towards, especially when you get to the age mark of like 14, 15, when you're still playing Sunday League. Like it's kind of like a stress reliever, something to do, play with all your mates, and obviously you catch the enjoyment with the competition against all your mates as well. So it's something I think important for people really to do.
And was your home ground Warsaw, wasn't it? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah. And do you still play Sunday League now, or is that something you stopped doing?
No, I stopped as soon as I think I stopped at like around 16, 17 maybe. That's when I started to make the jump to like 18s football. And I had a lot of football going on at the time, and I kind of didn't want to like overplay myself or just play too much football. So I kind of just sort of left it, and then I just proceeded to play 18s football.
Is that something you miss, sort of playing Sunday League with your mates and having a laugh rather than sort of when football gets like a bit more?
Yeah, no, that's, especially like I think obviously you're relatable as well. Like when we'd all come into school and just sort of talk about it, and then like even like the little five-a-side tournaments, the whole league, like when everyone's just sort of taking the mickey at each other, because majority of us played for different teams, some for the same, some not. So like coming into school and sort of talking about how you like smashed this team, or when you played against each other and who won, like you miss all that feeling, like that whole competitiveness between each other.
Yeah, and for me personally, football's always been like about having a laugh, enjoying. Like I've never took it too seriously because I was never really that great. But obviously, when you got to sort of like 16, 17, it was quite serious with like the school first team. You got quite far in the cups and like the league, and then also with you trying to progress with teams like Whitehawk and that we'll go into. Do you think that was like where it sort of got quite a lot serious for you to when you progress from sort of having fun to playing serious? And do you think if you carried on just having fun, you would have maybe enjoyed your football more or progressed more?
It's a tough one, because it's like I think everyone could agree, like when you're winning, you kind of enjoy it anyway. Like even if you are playing like a 6 out of 10 every game, like as long as your team's winning, like you're kind of happy for it, and all the achievements you sort of do with that team. But yeah, especially when I went on to 18s football, that was kind of when I separated from my friendship group, because we all ended up playing for different teams. So I separated. I was probably the only one out of that lot that went to a completely different team, and it was kind of tough and new for me, because obviously the year or two before we was playing with each other for another club, which I think was Horsham at the time. And we was doing so well, like we was playing 1 or 2 academies here or there. And yeah, and they tried to sort of mix us in to East Grinstead 18s, I think it was. They wanted to get us all to join and sign there, but obviously the travel was a bit too much, and like for what it was worth, it just wasn't really enough. So yeah, we separated. I went to Whitehawk, and I haven't really regretted it since, to be honest. Like it was probably the best thing I've ever done, and yeah, it gets serious, but it was just one of those, like we was winning all the time, so I was just enjoying myself, and like that's probably why I was doing so well at the time.
When you talk about people you sort of were playing with and then weren't, are you talking about people from school? Like I'm not sure if people know we had quite a good school team.
Yeah, yeah.
Our team, we had probably most of the players in the team were quite high level players. Or do you mean those sort of players who you were playing with from like probably year 8, year 7, 8 onwards through to year 11, or are you talking about other players?
I'd no, all from like school, like all from school, because we just all had this sort of like the same mentality, the character, and obviously we all played with each other, so it was just kind of easier because we all knew how we played, and knew all our attributes and stuff. So we bonded well and stuff, but yeah, it kind of just from that stage onwards, like no one really knew what to do with 18s football, like in terms of what clubs. I think Finn mentioned he went to Worthing. Like I think he was the only one that was like certain where he was going to go, um, and then the rest of us were kind of like a bit 50-50, didn't know what to do. I just went to the Whitehawk trial like just to see how it was, and it was a good competition, like a lot of good players. I didn't know them because obviously I was younger, but when the opportunity came, I just said I'm going to take it. There's no point like waiting around.
Yeah, for me, it's quite. I think that's one of the biggest issues with like youth football is like that jump from when you get to like finishing secondary school, so like year 11 and 18s football. So the jump from like, for example, like I was playing Sunday league, all our school team, like you mentioned, they all didn't really know other than a couple of players where they wanted to go. Whereas like school team, it's like controlled. You're all in the same team.
Mm.
You all play for a Sunday league team. Do you think that's quite hard to jump up to like under 18s teams when you have to sort of make your own decisions?
Yeah, yeah, especially at that age. Obviously, like you have your parents that sort of like give you advice, but it's kind of on you, and it's the same for anything you do really, like in life or like football in general. The higher you go is knowing what's the best option for you, and at a young age like 16, 17, you don't really know because you don't know anyone. um like you don't know majority of the players, like you don't know what they're like compared to other teams and stuff like that. So um it was kind of like a risky thing I'd say, because it's one of those, like if you go to a team and they're doing really well, even if you are playing a 6 out of 10, you still get made out to look like you're a 10-10 player.
Mm.
um so yeah, like I got quite fortunate. I went to a team with a good bunch of guys and a good coach, and we ended up like just doing really well, to be honest.
And before we get on to talking about your time at Whitehawk, I thought maybe talk about that school team a bit. Do you think that sort of pushed you on to be better playing with all those good players who are on a similar level to you, and also like you were all mates as well, so it made it better? I remember being at games like against like Shoreham Academy and Beads and things where it was just like the games were quite high level for a school game.
Yeah, that's one thing I miss about it all. Just that whole friendship group, or everyone that was there or a part of it, like we all just had the same mentality. um like we didn't care who was in front of us, and we just wanted to win the games. I think the one thing I regret is maybe we didn't play as a team too much. Like that's one thing I get told a lot, especially from players that are a year below us and as well. They go, like we had the best team out there, or one of the best anyway, but sometimes maybe we was just full of like individuals, like we kind of all want to do it, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like uh, when I was younger, I was really arrogant. Like I really thought I was sort of, I needed to take 3-4 players on to score a worldie goal, and it was things like that. Like I don't think we worked as a team, because I think we could have created better memories than we did, because I think we underachieved a lot, which was a bit like upsetting. But it's one of those.
Yeah, because for me, like, say there'd be so like 9 of you probably at the same level around, and then there'd be like a couple players who'd come in like maybe every now and then to fill like a position if someone was missing and that. And I think it
Yeah,
may be difficult for those players because like if they made a mistake, it was a lot more obvious and they got a lot more grief for it because they were sort of a drop down in level. Do you think that was like a big reason behind the school team maybe not winning as many cups and stuff? I know you obviously won a lot, but considering the quality in the team, you could have maybe won more, in my opinion.
yeah, 100%. Like, but I've actually had this conversation with all of them as well, and um, it's just one of those when you're younger, like the emotion comes out just like that. You can't really hold it back, and maybe the way some of us conducted ourselves towards other players that maybe um, weren't as sort of developed at that time. Um, like it was just it wasn't nice at all. I don't think. Like I know, I don't know how many players, 3, 4 players might have just left the like school team because of how certain players acted towards them when they made a mistake. And then when it was us that made the mistakes, it was kind of like, oh, don't worry, like it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing. But again, that's the whole point of like growing up at that time. It was just we was all eager to win, and if someone made that mistake, it just sort of came out. But yeah, that is one thing I wish we sort of managed, is just to know how to control ourselves and sort of act properly as a team rather than thinking everyone can be a 10-10 every game.
Yeah, and for me, I think sort of then after school sort of thing, did you straight away know you were going to Whitehawk? Did you have trials with any other teams or look at joining any other teams, or was it just Whitehawk was sort of the main decision all along?
Yeah, Whitehawk was the main club for me at the time, because that was sort of my like kickstart for football. Like there was nothing else really. I mean, that based on my like reputation in terms of how well I've done has come through Whitehawk. Like before that, like I was okay at football, right? But I didn't really have anything like concrete that was going to come knocking on my door and sort of take me for a better opportunity. So yeah, Whitehawk at the time was probably the best thing for me.
And was that the Whitehawk under 18s, 23s, or did you train with the first team at all, or was it mainly just under 18?
So it was the 18s. As a pre-year, I was there. We did really well. I was actually not meant to play a lot that season because they had a lot of like second years, and I got told that, but I ended up playing one game and just did really well. And then from there on, I played out throughout the whole season, and then yeah, we won the treble that following year, and then my following season after that, we won the double. But I was doing really well at the time, and I got called up from the first team, who were at the time Conference South team.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't really know back then like what was Conference South, what was like Bostik. Like I weren't really too sure about it. I just kind of went there, and yeah, like the level of players was ridiculous. Like I went there, thought I was going to sort of turn up, and then yeah, I kind of got schooled. Like I got taught a lesson, and then you kind of learnt throughout. And I was with them for, I'd say, a couple of weeks. I had a lot of interest from like pro clubs at the time. Um, I went on trial at one, but yeah, there was just an incident which kind of killed me completely. Like it was an incident with the first team manager at Whitehawk. Um, Stuff to do with like agencies and stuff. Like as you hear sometimes, like it was just I was too young. I didn't know what to do. Like I was doing really well, and he saw it as an opportunity to sort of bank on me. And yeah, when things didn't work out and I didn't want to do what he wanted, I kind of got the drop, no questions asked, and then I was back with the 18s. And one thing I kind of like wish I'd done was go back to men's football somewhere else. And I didn't really take advantage of that. I kind of just went back to the 18s, was like, yeah, I'm gonna, carry on playing here and just win whatever I can.
Yeah, so was it quite, you mentioned obviously quite a few things there that we'll go into a bit more, but starting with where you mentioned at the start, you sort of played with the 18s, then got that jump up to the first team, and you said you got schooled. Was that sort of a bit of a realization of like, obviously at school and then 18s, it's always been people at your age who you've been able to compete with or been at that level. Was that quite a big jump to people who I imagine, do they get paid at Whitehawk a bit, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, especially at Whitehawk, it's quite a lot of money. Like if I said some of them, you'd think like it's ridiculous money. It could be like your full-time job basically. But yeah, like they had players coming from like different countries as well, which was crazy. I remember one time he had like 4 or 5 like French players, didn't speak a word of English. You know, they were just speaking it among themselves, and I was kind of like, I didn't know what to do. But yeah, they're all, you know, they've all either been in and around that sort of level, or they was ex pros and been there and done that. So you know, when I came to realization of, you know, speaking with them and learning a few things and knowing what they're about and what they've done, you know, it kind of puts you in your place. And that's one thing I'd say to any player who makes that jump um, from 18s to first team, is that no matter what you achieved, as soon as you make that step up, they don't care who you are, because to them you're a nobody, right? If you haven't made that reputation for yourself, like they don't care. Um, it becomes more serious. Like obviously you're getting paid for it, right? And you have, the more you win, the more money you get. So it's not like 18s where you can drop 3 points and it's like, oh, don't worry about it, we'll win the next game. Like every game counts in men's football, and especially the higher you go, even the pro games, like it gets serious, and there's some stuff that happens that you don't want to happen, but it's just the reality of football. So yeah.
Yeah, was that so? Obviously, you said that first game was quite difficult. Did you then get thrown back in? Did you get more opportunities, or was it like the first game was difficult and then they threw you straight back into the under 18?
So I made my debut for them for the first team in the cup. I think it was Eastbourne Town. I'm not too sure. I think I came on, and I did really well for. I came on for like the last 40 minutes. I did really well, to be fair. Um, and I was getting treated really well. I was getting told I was doing really well, and again, it was just that sort of collision with the first team manager, because after that game, I had a FA Youth Cup against Charlton with the 18. So I went back to them, and you know, did really well. Impressed. Few people came along, and yeah, like he didn't get me. The first team manager didn't get me to do what he wanted in order to sort of make profit, and yeah, he just didn't even ask. Just said, yeah, don't come to training. I'm gonna get dropped back to the 18s, and I was a bit upset. Like, you know, like it was a good opportunity for me, and I was starting to get along with people. Um, and yeah, it was upsetting because at the time, like I said, like I didn't know what the leagues were like, but as sort of like an achievement to sort of show off, like yeah, at 17, I was with a Conference Southside, playing with a Conference Southside. It would have been something to sort of like say in future, but you know, things don't work out. But yeah, for me, it was just kind of to bounce back from that, really.
When you talk about, so you said there was an incident with the manager. Do you mind going into exactly what happened, or
Um,
I'm wrong there?
yeah, yeah. It was just at the time, again, like I had a lot of interest from a lot of clubs. I had actually, I think, 2 or 3 clubs who actually called the club to get me on trial. Um, and the thing is, I didn't actually hear about these trials till maybe 2, 3 weeks later, because of the manager answering the phone apparently and speaking to him themselves and basically saying, um, yeah, you can have him on trial, but if he gets signed, you have to give us a cut. And obviously, I'm not allowed to be on contract because I'm under the age at the time, but he told him I was, from what I heard. So, yeah, it killed me completely from what he was asking in terms of money. And the club were like, yeah, it's not happening. Uh, he also, tried to get me with his agency. And no doubt he could have, his agent could have got me loads of trials at different clubs, but my mind worked at the time like if you're good enough, you will attract a lot of clubs anyway. So I kind of left it at that. And yeah, there was an incident outside of training one time. After training, I think my dad came along, and you can imagine how that would have went. And yeah, like straight from there, like we didn't speak again, just kind of dropped me like that. And yeah, it was just unfortunate.
Do you think that was a big moment sort of in your football development? I watched a video recently of Ravel Morrison. I'm not sure if you've seen it, where he was talking about like Sam Allardyce and how he was doing well at West Ham, and then Sam Allardyce tried to get him to sign with his agency, and he wouldn't do that, and then it sort of killed his football career. Do you think, obviously it's completely different levels and stuff, but do you think that was sort of similar for you, like when he didn't let you have a chance at those clubs and sort of pushed you back to the 18, so you've got to a level where you're sort of learning and then you've been dropped back down? Do you think that sort of killed sort of your football career and your sort of hope? Like growing up, you've always just loved football. There's been nothing about contracts or agencies or trials or anything really. And then sort of that made you realise there's a lot of people in football who are sort of out to get you.
Yeah, definitely. I laugh about it a lot because when I speak to, one of my close mates who's at Lewis at the moment, he's just getting into the men's game. And I try giving anyone advice, like when you get into that men's game, the higher you go, like I said, like people are there for themselves. It's rare you meet some people who are there to be friends for life type of thing. Like a lot of people are there, come and go, what benefits them, and what, anything to sort of get anything out of you. And yeah, it was a definitely, I think, a decline at that point because my confidence went a little bit. And I also think because of the 18 squad, a lot of them were playing men's football anyway, in Bostik and County Prem. So physically they was getting better. They was getting technically better as well. And I think they sort of caught up with me, and maybe, I was still there, but maybe I wasn't as good as I could have been if I sort of tried out to play somewhere else at a men's team and sort of gain that experience. So yeah, like I kind of went down a little bit here and there. Like I was inconsistent, which killed my confidence a little bit. And yeah, it just didn't really help too much.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you sort of lost your trust in people. Like he's your manager. You're only what 17, 18 at the time. So like you're not everything he's telling you you're taking on, but you're thinking like if he's the manager of a conference team, if I listen to him, I'll progress, I'll get better, and then he's sort of doing what's not best for you, in your opinion, and what seems like it generally wasn't the best thing for you. Does that sort of knock your trust in coaches in general?
Yeah, 100%. Just whatever it is, it sounds bad because you don't want to be like that, but it's kind of the reality of things in general. But football as well, like people will promise you the world and then not give it to you. Players as well, like they'll do certain things, and it was hard. It was hard for me. I mean, to be fair, I had some clues in it because people were telling me before what he's like as a manager, what he can be like, and if this ever happened, be ready for it. So I was kind of prepared for him, but at the end of the day, he's a manager who's been all over the place. He knows plenty of people. I'm just a kid who's just sort of come through. I don't have the contacts he does. If he really wanted to, he could have probably tarnished me, like in terms of like who I played for, like told him, yeah, he's like this, he's like that, which sounds like crazy, but it's what that whole sort of behind the closed doors things is like. It's mental. Like some of the stories you'd hear, you'd kind of think, no way, like not in non-league, but yeah, it's people do a lot of things in order to benefit themselves.
Do you think there should be more support for people our age sort of coming through? Like obviously I've never experienced it, but like we're obviously quite naive. Like personally, if I was in that position, I wouldn't have any idea of sort of contracts and other clubs and trials, that sort of thing. Like even like you say, obviously your parents are very supportive, but they've not played football. They don't know exactly what the situation is or how to go about it. Do you think? And obviously these managers, yeah, they want to develop players, but at the end of the day, they're getting paid for Whitehawk to do well. Do you think there should be more support for people like yourselves and other people who sort of are trying to progress in football, but don't really, are obviously quite naive? Not saying you were, but you wouldn't have known growing up how it all works. Do you think there should be more support and education about how it all works?
Yeah, 100%. It's just something that should be taught. It's kind of one of the basics, but you know, like how they would do it is quite a hard one, I think. Like, because you don't know who's you know bad at what. People tend to front themselves, you know, lie about how they are as a person, and then you know that can just make that person believe them. So you don't know who's like what unless you know consistently some people are going, yeah, this person's like this. But especially for like the players that come up, like it's very tough, I'd say, to be able to support them. Like you, again, it's one of those, you've got to be in the right team where they have a bunch of players that go, yeah, this kid, he's you know he's good. Like I want to try and help him out as a friend. Um, you know, and that kind of happened with me. That as soon as you know when he got the sack, when we got relegated from Conference South, you know he got the sack, and my 18s manager got the job, and he was arguably he's the best coach I've ever had. So when you got the job, it was probably the most ideal thing. And throughout them 2 years that I was with him, uh, you know, all the players he had, him himself, the staff, like they was proper supportive with me. So, you know, it was kind of a blessing. But yeah, it's one of those again. You've just got to be lucky with the environment you've been given and the people you're with.
Do you think so? Obviously, you mentioned a few clubs there were sort of call in, and you had a trial. What sort of level were those clubs? If you can name any of them, and who did you trial at, and what was that like?
So I trialed at Millwall Academy. So I don't know where they are in categories. I think they was Cat 2, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I was there twice on trial. One of them was actually, I think, my last year of school or the year before that. And that was probably a worse time the first time I went on trial because this was when agencies started to sort of pop up. I hadn't signed for anyone. And one of them just went, look, I can put you on trial. I'll prove it. And he put me on trial at Millwall. And then it was kind of when they was offering scholarships to players, and I either had to be better than what they had or really up there. And you know, at the time, I wasn't. I was doing really well. Like I thought I was doing really well at the time, and I was getting told. And then yeah, one time they just called up my dad, and they told him, they was like, look, you know, your kid's a good player. We'd like him to come up to train with us still, and then we can have a look even more. But we can't offer anything to him because we're offering scholarships. And they had, I think, one international player anyway, and a few of them were proper decent. So yeah, that was tough. And you know, I could have gone up and trained with him, carry on training with him, but you know, you can imagine from me traveling up to there to London just to like go training was a bit like pointless for me. So I just there on yeah, it was a bit tough. And then the second time I went on trial, might have also been that my last year of school then, so the year after potentially. And it was FA Youth Cup. We played Charlton, and I played really well that game. On the spot, actually, Charlton offered me a trial as there and then. The 18s manager for Millwall was there, and you know he also offered me a trial, and that one was a tough one for me because me and my dad had have a really strong relationship in terms of my football. Like you could say he's like my agent or somewhat. And you know, at the time given, he convinced me to go to Millwall because it was like a second opportunity, more of a chance to go there. But there was no accommodation afforded like to me to go there, so I had to travel. Whilst Charlton, on the other hand, was offered accommodation. So in terms of if I had to pick, like it would have been a no-brainer. I would have picked Charlton at the time. But yeah, I went with Millwall. And again, I was doing well, but the traveling it got too tiring. I was there for a while, and then we called him up one time. He was like, "Look, can we try and sort something for accommodation because it's getting quite tough?" And I don't know how it works. I'm not sure. But from what they said that a budget they couldn't afford to. I don't know how true that is or whatever, but that's what they said. So yeah, it was just like we kind of cut the trial there and then. And yeah, I think from there on, my confidence went quite low, because it was kind of like a shot at redemption to have another go at it. And yeah, it didn't work out the way it did, and yeah, kind of sort of went downhill, I'd say, somewhat that during that season.
You mentioned obviously there you had two choices with Charlton and Millwall. Do you think going back, that's something you regret? Not maybe because for me Millwall's a bigger club. Might get some hate from Charlton fans, but I think Millwall's sort of a bigger name. It's more well known. They've had quite a few players come through their academy. Would you say going back you would have gone with Charlton maybe?
100%. I say it to this day. Like I wouldn't say it's like a regret because everything. I believe in everything happens for a reason, but it's one of those. Who knows? Like I could have gone there, maybe not got in at all. So it's just one of those. But I do wish I had a shot at it at the time. Maybe I was a bit too quiet in my decision. Like with my parents, they kind of made that choice for me. And then when it didn't work out, I kind of, if I'm honest, I blamed them. But technically, it was all my fault because I didn't have a say. I didn't say anything. I didn't, make that choice myself. So yeah, that would be my fault. But in terms of academy or what academy, to me, it didn't really matter because academy is academy, and for me, that was like the ultimate goal, just to make it into the pro game and then work my way towards of the dream of playing as high as I could.
Do you think maybe you put too much pressure on making it in terms of getting into that Premier League or League One or Pro Academy, and sort of having that title of, oh, I play for Millwall Academy or I play for Charlton Academy? Do you think maybe if you just sort of continue to enjoy your football? I know it's hard because obviously you want to step up the levels, and I'm sure if I was in that position and had things in front of me that I could take, I would have as well. But do you think maybe that sort of pressure to sort of make it into an academy sort of put you back a bit rather than just sort of actually playing and developing your football?
Yes and no. No, because it was just more of a motivation factor to work towards it. I do also still believe I didn't put enough effort as I should have, and I did a lot, but I don't think it was enough. Which is the context, like you got to work hard to make it. Like it's true, but yes as well because when you had them odd occasion games where you play academies, with maybe a club you were with or, a Sunday league team, like if you got lucky, something like that, like an exhibition game, I always felt the need to do too much and try and do this amazing thing in a game when realistically I didn't. I just needed to play myself. I needed to, play the way I play rather than, again, trying to take 3-4 players on, score a 30-yarder, hit a 40-yard diag, because you realize when you get older, there's more to the game than just a fancy trick or a nice touch. Like there's more to it, and I think that was something I had to learn the hard way, really.
Yeah, I think the big thing is like, well, it's like getting a golden ticket, isn't it? Getting like becoming a footballer is like probably for most young people like the best job you could ever have, really. Like money,
Mm.
playing football, like fame. Do you think it was sort of built up too much to you, like in terms of you could do this, like you could play for this team, you could play for this team, and it's sort of like for me, like it would be, I think it would just be too much at that age to have so much pressure on every decision you make. Do you think that was sort of a bad thing for you, the amount of pressure on all your decisions?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those when, you know, as we was all younger, like if a scout came, like they'd say, "Don't tell him, don't tell him." Um, and every time I'd get told, I'd just in my head, maybe in game I wouldn't think about it too much, but then there was moments in that game where I would try and do something that maybe isn't me or just out of the ordinary that I wouldn't do at all. You know, like for example, I think it was my second season at Whitehawk 18s, and in pre-season we played uh, like an academy who they collect players from all out England who are trying to make it pro, and we played them at Chelsea's training ground. And you know that game was meant for them because they was all being watched by Chelsea, and you know luckily for me, I ended up turning up that day, and they was then suddenly interested. They was like, okay, like we're going to come to a few games. You don't know when, but we will. Um, and they came to the first 5 games of my 18s games, and you know when I heard it on the day, like it kind of maybe got to me a little bit. Like I got too excited, did did things in the pitch that I just shouldn't have. And yeah, they ended up saying like, you know, this kid's too inconsistent. One bad game, one good game, one bad game, one bad game, one good game. And they was just saying like, you know, for our league and our caliber of players, like we need you to be consistent. And yeah, I wasn't. So yeah, it was a killer for me. But again, it sometimes it's how you deal with pressure. And I think now when I've grown up a little bit, things like that don't bother me. I don't think about it too much. Like I kind of just get on with it. But back then, I just got maybe too excited at the time.
So was that Charlton you said watch, or Chelsea did you say you were watching?
Chelsea at the time.
Oh, okay. And so obviously you mentioned a few clubs you were having sort of a look at you. Was it after that second Millwall experience that it sort of died down, or because I'm not sure, do you still play now, or have you sort of fallen out of love with football a bit?
No, currently I'm on unluckily, but I'm on my third injury, which is unfortunate. I've been waiting on a third op for next month. Hopefully, if I get it, I get it. But no, Millwall, look, it was an experience, and I was upset when it didn't work out. But I kind of used it as a motivation factor. Like, you know, I've been there. Like, I need to set the levels now, and I tried carrying it through. I got luckily enough that same year. I got into the England school squad, the only kid from Sussex at the time, and it was a big thing. And yeah, that was probably the time maybe I started declining a lot. Again, it was one of those where you had to be with the right people at the right time, and the manager at the time was not suitable to my type of player. You know, like he had a lot of good players there. I've made friends there and stuff, but he was a manager who, how do you say it, like was a set piece merchant. So he liked all the big boys, and a lot of the players were taller than me, bigger than me. And the kid that was in my position as well, he was on trial at Stoke. So to him, that was like, yeah, it would be stupid if he doesn't start. And yeah, I mean, every training session was like set pieces for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And I'm just sitting there like, this is not benefiting me at all. Like, what is this? And yeah, obviously, you know, he had all these set pieces throughout these games and nothing worked. And I think it was quite funny because he brought me on for the last game that we had with them. And we had a set piece, and I just went, do you know what, I'm taking this one. And we actually scored from it. And I kind of just like, I didn't even celebrate. I was just kind of like smug about it, like to prove a point. But yeah, he wasn't really one I got on with, I don't think. Like we didn't really get on, whether that was my fault or whether that was his fault. I don't know, but in my eyes, I see it as, you know, he wasn't really suited to what I played.
It sounds like you mentioned a couple managers there you haven't really got on with. Do you think that's quite a big thing, sort of having the same mentality as your coach and manager? Do you think you found that quite difficult to sort of adapt to different styles of management and coaching?
Um, yeah, I mean, there was all for, you know, various different reasons. Obviously, the first one was for money related stuff. Second one was just purely because, you know, I didn't suit what he wanted in terms of the game. Like I say, like I'm not here to blame other people. Like I take full responsibility for some of the stuff. Like maybe I should have changed the way I was, or maybe I should have done something more. Like I look at it that way all the time. But um, as a player, I think I like to think that I listen a lot to the managers, especially the ones recently I have. I do listen. I do take on board. I try to do the most I can to help the team. Like it's not about me anymore. Like again, I think I've matured in that sense. Maybe when I was younger, it was kind of like I had to do it about me. I had to be the main player on the pitch. But when I grew up a bit older, I realized that it's about the team. It's about us winning. It's not about me winning. So yeah, it's just it's one of those like I'll look at myself for it, not really try and blame other people.
Do you think so? You mentioned obviously Chelsea were looking. Were there any other big clubs at the time that you were aware of looking at you at all, or came to any games?
Um, it's all from what I hear, so I don't know like how certain it was. I knew Fulham was watching me as well, but they had the same reason. I was just inconsistent. Um, I had I heard that Man United, but again, I don't know how reliable that was. That was just from what I got told. Um, a lot of clubs in Cat 2, so you know, like the Charltons, the Millwalls, you know, some of the other clubs in that league. Um, Gillingham as well. Um, you know, all them clubs, but just unfortunate, like it didn't go how I wanted it at the time, but it's a learning curve.
Of course. And then obviously you mentioned you're on your third injury. I know you've been quite unlucky with injuries. When was the first injury? What was it, and how did that affect you?
So coming up to nearly 3 years, I think it's 2 years and a bit now. I was playing football with it, like I didn't feel it at all, but you know, I had some sort of pains here and there, nothing too major. And then I finished my second season at 18s for Whitehawk, and you know we had our pre-season, well, our break before pre-season, so I thought I'd check it out. And then yeah, I heard that I tore my meniscus on the inside of my knee. Um, Obviously, I was new to all these injury stuff because I was playing like every week and all healthy and stuff. So yeah, um, found out I had to go through surgery that way. Went through surgery. Obviously, it was a long process. Again, we didn't know anyone, so we had to go through the NHS and wait through all that thing. And it took 8 months, I think 9 months till I came back, when it should have been shorter. Came back, did was with the first team, trying to get back fit. I wasn't really focusing on the end of the season because I came back around end of January, February time. So that whole season was just to sort of get back fit and feel ready for pre-season. And then I did really well pre-season, probably better than I thought I would. I was one of the main players in the first team, took one of the main players' positions at the time, and then I had a little problem with my groin. So I missed the first couple of games and then came back in, did well, had one bad game, then obviously one of those behind the closed doors, things happen, thing gets said, didn't play throughout. So I was playing for Worthing College, which was kind of my redemption to like happiness for the game at the time. And then yeah, we went to a little five-a-side tournament, and yeah, I just tore my ACL. I had a partial ACL tear. Yes, it was just one of those on that day. Like I knew something bad was wrong. I heard a massive snap, and I was just like, yeah, something bad's happened. So yeah, I went through that. I didn't have to have surgery on it, luckily, but it was obviously it's still like 9 to 12 months of rehab. So Had to go through that, and then came back, got the all clear around November time, which was good news. Then I started sort of training slowly, and my right knee was feeling a bit weird. And then it got to a point where I just was struggling, went to go check it out, and then found out I tore something again in my right knee. So I've got to wait on and op. And, you know, especially days like when I'm not doing anything, you kind of just think like, what did I do wrong? Like, what's gone on? Like, did I not look after myself? Did I just didn't do the right thing? And it's just one of those I'll never know the answer to, but you just got to sort of cope with it.
That must have been quite hard to take, because obviously these are sort of key years in your development of playing football. Like you're at Whitehawk, you're doing these trials, and then suddenly you can't play football properly really for probably two to 3 years. Was that quite hard to take, especially like from as much as I've known you at school and stuff? You've always been playing football every day, like whether that was at clubs, on the playground. Like we all took it like as a laugh. You obviously always been very serious about football. Was that quite hard to deal with, like not being able to play football at all?
Yeah, 100%. Even mentally now, like I have moments of just, you know, you kind of just sort of deep everything you've done. And again, asking the question, like, why me? Like, what did I do? So yeah, like, I mean, the first injury I had was probably my worst moment because I didn't know how to take it. I was very upset all the time. The second one was probably my worst injury, but I was very okay with it. Coped with it. I had the right people at the time that were helping me go through it. And then yeah, the third one, this recent one, kind of blew me away a little bit because it just came out of the blue. And you know, I'm trying to look positive because, you know, at the end of the day, like whether I'm upset or not, days still go by. So I kind of just look at it as that way. Like I just try and be positive as I can. But you know, you have moments which is natural, where you kind of just are a bit down, a bit upset. But yeah, it's always trying to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, really.
Do you think that third injury, because obviously to have 3 big injuries at your age is quite unusual, it's quite a big thing for someone. Do you think that sort of you were more adapted to dealing with that and sort of coping with that, or do you think it made it harder that it was like a recurrence?
A bit of both, I'd say. You know, mentally you kind of cope with it like really well because you're kind of, you know what to do, you know how it's going to play out. But it's just one of those where the recovery time in your head is the one that kills you the most. Like for me, going through surgeries and stuff, like look, it happens, anyone goes through it. You'll be back in no time, but it's then the recovery time, you know, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, you know, that's when you're like, right, this is quite a long time till I'll be back even kicking a ball. But at the same time, you know, it can be sort of a heartbreaker, like especially like yourself, you just love football, you just want to play it, kicking, you know, even nowadays, you know, where it's sunny, you want to just go train or kick around with your mates, and I can't even do that at the moment. So moments like that, you kind of just think like you don't know what to do with yourself, really.
Yeah, is that a big thing, you sort of in terms of like mental health, feel a bit lost without playing football regularly? And like mentioned, even being able to kick about, like for me, I play 5-a-side once a week, as I mentioned on here before, and that's like, if I can't do that for one reason or another, like with obviously lockdown and stuff, that's quite hard for me to take, not even being able to do that every week. Is that quite a sort of lost feeling not having football there?
Yeah, 100%. I've definitely, if I'm honest, I've had moments where like I've considered what to do with my football, whether I try and come back and take it seriously or I just come and play for fun. You know, if I'm honest, like there's been a moment where I've maybe thought like I should just stop and just, you know, focus on being healthy and look at other things, which is not something I want to do. But then sometimes the reality comes and You know, everyone wants to be a footballer. Like, that's just a kid's dream,
Yeah.
but the reality of making it is quite slim. So, you know, sometimes I look at myself and I think maybe you're just not the one to make it, and it's upsetting. But again, it's reality at this moment of time, and it for future as well. Like, I don't know if I'll get another injury, or if it'll come again, or I'll be fit till the age of 35. You know, it's just one of those. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. But it will just have to be where I come back, look after myself as best I can, and try and keep up, really.
Do you think that's harder as well? Because obviously, quite a few of your mates, like I know you're friends with Hayden, who's obviously plays for Brighton on loan at Rochdale. You got a few other friends. One I think's in the Charlton Academy. Obviously, a few people from school, like Finn's in America. Like Ricky's playing for Worthing. Is that quite hard when people you've sort of were with before and surround yourself with now are obviously you're not like you want them to succeed and stuff, but then obviously you want to be in that position as well, but with injuries and just different circumstances you haven't able to be. Is that quite difficult as well?
Yeah, 100%. Like, that, you know, I have these conversations with Hayden as well. Like, even though they could be your best friend or whatever, you want them to do well. Like, for me, any friend of mine that's come from Brighton to do really well for themselves, like Ricky, you know, like, been mates for however long, and he's doing well really now. Like, you know, I'm happy for him. Like, I'm so happy for him. Hayden as well, Charlie Barker at Charlton. Like, I'm happy for all of them. But then, you know, you have that sense of competition and using it as a motivation factor to, like, go, yeah, I want to better you. You know I can do this well. And yeah, like, I've always thought like that, but it's just, especially now when I've had conversations with people, I try and not focusing on that too much, because, you know, you had this thing, especially when we was younger, I think, like, the whole comparing thing, like, who's better, who's this. And, you know, at least when I was like 18, 19, you know, I always thought like that, like, comparing myself to other people, and I'd get upset about it because I should be in that position. But, you know, I do believe in timing as well. Like, everyone's timing's different. You know, I could end up doing well in the next 10 years, who knows? But it's just one of those, like, I try not thinking about it too much. Like, I'm happy for everyone that's doing well that I know, but I'm kind of on my own journey. Like, I'll do things my way, and whether it works out or not, like, it's all dependent, like, on my luck. But um at least I can go out by the end of it going, I know I gave it everything. And if it didn't work out, then so be it.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say for me, it definitely sounds like as well. Obviously, you still love football, but maybe it, from what's happened with injuries and stuff with agents and just general the serious side of football, maybe you feel it sounds like maybe you don't love it as much, or you don't enjoy it as much as say maybe I do, because I haven't like I've had not really any negative experiences of football because I've never really um, been in a position where I could have, because I've never really took it seriously. Do you think maybe now, obviously once you can again, I know you played a bit of five-side at Hove Park. Do you think you'll sort of maybe to start with just focus on maybe back to enjoying football, like five-a-side and maybe Sunday League and stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, five-a-side was just something to play with my mates and enjoy it and have fun with it, you know, and try things out there. Um, you know, obviously I've left Whitehawk now since, I think, last year. I've got a new club ready to go to. You know, I know the manager quite well, and he knows my situation. So I'm thankful that he's given me all the help that I need at this moment of time. Um, and yeah, like, um, it's kind of a mix because, like you said, you know, me probably falling out with the game a little bit. You know, when I'm near to that stage of coming back, I think I'll be more excited and motivated as ever. But, you know, at this time right now, I'd say it's kind of dark and gloom. Like, I don't know what I think about it. It's kind of like, oh, like, I'm very not as motivated as I would be because I can't do anything right now. So Probably my mindset will change once I have my surgery and I'm ready to come back on it. I'll probably be more ready. But yeah, at this moment, I'm not as excited or happy about football as I was.
And you mentioned there you have a club lined up. What club are you looking at to sort of go back to playing with?
It will be Burgess Hill Town, who are Bostik South at the moment. For me, that was probably a realistic decision. I was looking to go County Prem, but I spoke to a lot of people, especially people at my old club, speaking to them. What do they think? These are ex-pros who, have an opinion, whether it's right or wrong. It's just something to listen to. And, I said, what do you think I should do? Like, do I make that drop or do I try and stay at this level and keep going? And, they all vouch for me to try and stay in that league. And, I back myself when I'm on the pitch and stuff like that. So, and it was great. I had a manager who knew me, knew my situation, and was ready to wait it out for me till I come back. And probably again, it's one of those, being lucky to have the right people and the right environment at the right time. And I think I might potentially be lucky on this one. So yeah, when I'm back, I'll hopefully go there. And my short-term goal will be to at least stay fit and ready, and hopefully just play a full season without being injured or have any niggles or anything. But then the following season, I want to try and up the goals, up the assists, and then try and keep on from there. But the main thing will try and just be stay ready, fit, and healthy.
Perfect. And we've got some questions here for you. A few people asked. There are a couple jokey ones that I'm not sure you'll be too happy with, but I've got a couple. I'll start with the serious ones first. Someone asked the best moment in your football journey so far. Obviously, we spoke a lot about sort of the negatives of what's happened so far, but is there you mentioned obviously starting in the Whitehawk first team, is there a best moment from your football journey so far?
There's a lot of moments. There's not really one that sticks out, all for various different reasons. Obviously, getting the England school call up was something big. Obviously, what happened, but for that was a big achievement for me. Again, Whitehawk first team, that was a good acknowledgement for like what I'd done, and little things as well, like I'd say the school football team. More and more I think about it, the more I miss it. Like just being with all my mates and winning trophies and beating big teams. Those are moments for me, I think.
Okay, perfect. And another question was, where would you realistically like to be with your football in 5 years' time? Like, obviously, we can't guarantee what will happen in terms of injuries and stuff like that, but realistically, where could you see yourself going?
If I stay healthy and fit, the aim would still be to go pro. Again, whether it works or not, I don't know. But if not, just getting signed somewhere, definitely going through the conference leagues and trying to go up that way. If not, just playing conference and doing as much as I can to sort of make my name there.
So the main focus is still football, football, football. There's nothing else that sort of entered your mind at all that you'd like to do?
I've been doing like a bit of coaching here and there. I got my badge and everything. And I was gonna, start something, but it just sort of came to me that for me at this time, I still think I'm young. I don't think I'm ready to start that just yet, because I still want to just put all my all in football for myself. So if it comes to a point where football's not looking great, then I'll definitely bring that coaching factor, because I want to stay in the sport. But yeah, that will be the main factor for me.
Yeah, I saw that a couple months ago. You started like a one-to-one training coaching sort of thing. Have you stopped doing that, or is that something you sort of, that's like a fallback option like you mentioned?
At this moment, I've stopped it at this moment of time. Obviously, with injuries and everything, I don't think I can cope with it. It's something I've started, and I'll try and bring it back up at some point. If it means also I go and sign for a coaching, like RMA or Pro Direct or something, and go and work there, it's just experiences. But yeah, for myself, I'll just try and pick up experience along the way.
Perfect. And then Lewis Wells asked a question which I'm not too sure about. He said, what did it feel like playing in such an iconic midfield in year 11, especially the defensive midfielder?
Funny one. Bit change of scenery, because obviously he was a keeper before that, or the year, well, actually a few months before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good, because obviously it switched from Ricky being in there, and then obviously it was Lewis and Darius. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Lewis actually was decent. Like if I first thought was like he was going to struggle and not cope, but he actually ended up, I think that year, he actually ended up being one of our sort of best players in that year, surprisingly.
Don't big him up too much. His head's not much bigger. Next question from, get it up now. Brad asked, why couldn't you get past the best defence in the world at lunch?
Yeah, don't ask. It was I was actually thinking about this the other day, like just all them memories. Like, I know when I was younger, I was a bit more arrogant, and maybe people didn't like that, which was, I totally agree. If I was someone else, I'd probably like think, yeah, I want to smash this kid.
I think it was always just a bit of a laugh. Like we try and stop you scoring, wind you up a little bit, and you try and nutmeg us all. Like, I think whenever we got a tackle in or nutmeg, we just sort of, like, it was a bit of a laugh for all of us.
Yeah, it was funny, and then like I think I took it to heart. Like sometimes, like after like lunch, maybe when we see each other in lesson, I'd be like just having a go and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it was good fun, and yeah, that defense at lunch was a tough one to break down. I'll be honest, tough one.
Would you compare it to sort of like prime sort of like Maldini, Nesta, those sort of players with like me, Bud, players like that?
Definitely like prime time, like Puyol and everything. Definitely heart on the line.
And finally, Bud said Diego Costa is better than Ronaldo. I know you're a big fan of Ronaldo. What would you say to that as well?
Opinion's opinion. I mean, where's Costa now?
Oh, I don't even know. I think maybe Galatasaray or someone like that.
Yeah, says enough though, doesn't it? But yeah, probably in his prime, maybe at some point was better. But yeah, opinion's an opinion.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and giving us a great insight into sort of your football journey and what's gone well and wrong so far, and talking quite openly about like your injuries and stuff like that.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.